Well, Detective White, how is your investigation going? Mm-hmm. 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 I see. Well, Detective, I don't know what else I can do for you. I've done everything I can. Keep in mind, I'm just the security manager for the Carter Care Facility, and the facility is the owner of the Carter Homes. You know, this elder living neighborhood. Yes, yes, the Carter family purchased the land, and the buildings were already on it. They were office space, but they were converted into apartment units. Hmm. Well, I don't know how much that cost. You'll have to ask Mrs. Carter. Yes, if you would like, I can call her and ask her if she'd be willing to meet with you. Well, Detective White, you have to keep in mind, I understand that the local PD is investigating Tyrone's death as a hate crime. I understand that. But apparently, what you don't understand is that Tyrone never should have even moved in to these facilities. He was way too young. Okay, you wanted to ask me about that. Sure. What do you want to know? Well, here's the thing. Tyrone's mother, Mrs. Edwards, apparently she had no children of her own, and over the years, she and her husband, Mr. Edwards, were foster parents for a lot of children who didn't have people willing to take them in. And, well, apparently Tyrone was one of two foster children that the Edwards ended up adopting. Well, no, I don't know what happened to the other one, but Tyrone, well, Mr. Edwards passed away rather suddenly when Tyrone was adopted as a child, and that made Mrs. Edwards a single mom. Apparently, the other child they adopted was almost a teenager, and he decided to move out as soon as he turned 18. Apparently, he kept in touch with his adopted mother. That's all I know. Again, I'm just the security manager here. And, well, as for Tyrone, he was too young. He stayed with her, and look, I'm not going to make any speculations about the fact that Tyrone didn't have a father figure growing up. Maybe he would have turned out differently. But Tyrone started, from what I know, admiring thugs, pushers, pimps. And Mrs. Edwards, well, she tried, but she was getting on in years. And when Tyrone finally became 18, she told him he had to go. He didn't like that, but he left. Well, Mrs. Edwards ended up moving into this retirement village. I mean, there is an age requirement to stay here. The thing is, the bylaws state that when someone passes away, their children can only come and live here if their children meet the rather strict age requirement. Now, Tyrone was obviously too young. He was in his mid-20s. But unfortunately, well, Tyrone found a technicality in the rules. The rules state that biological children cannot inherit their parents' apartments. The apartments are usually sold and biological children get a percentage of the sale. However, Tyrone was not a biological child, he was an adopted child. And because of that technicality, he was able to use the state's inheritance laws against the Carters. Now, they tried, they spent a lot of money, but their attorneys, who are very well paid, told them, sorry, there's nothing we can do. Tyrone can move in, and he did. And quite frankly, he was a damn menace. All of a sudden, my guards were responding to calls at Mrs. Edwards' old apartment unit practically every single shift, not just every single day, every single shift. It became a nightmare and a hazard. Quite frankly, Tyrone was a damn menace. Well, yes, there were rumors of addiction and numerous rule violations. Apparently, the manager of the elder living village was working on getting Tyrone evicted with cause, but it takes a lot of violations before something like that can happen. And even with someone like Tyrone, no. He just kept racking up violations and nothing could be done. That's the unfortunate thing. Nothing could be done. And then the burglaries started. Everyone accused Tyrone. And there was that incident one night when Tyrone got drunk and started ranting and raving in the outdoor commons area that everyone was just racist. Even though the people who live here are a mix of white, Hispanic, Black, Asian, Indian, both from India and Native Americans. We have a surprising, huge mix of ethnicities here. But Tyrone, he didn't care about that. He just kept ranting and raving. Police had to be called. My men came out. I came out. I mean, we went over this already, Detective White. And no offense, it is ironic that you're a black man, but your last name is White. Anyway, Tyrone got hauled off to jail, and this time the judge was less than forgiving. Tyrone stayed in jail along with his contempt of court charges that he racked up. I mean, he was away for a month, and that was the quietest month we had had since anyone could remember. Although, quite frankly, since Tyrone moved in under that ridiculous technicality. No wild parties, no complaints of smoke drifting into other residents' apartments. None of it. It was quiet. It was peaceful. Everyone was happy. And then Tyrone came back. Look, the individual who attacked Mrs. Allenson, he wore a mask. He wore a ski mask. But Mrs. Allenson mentioned to you and Detective Stevens that she could tell through the mask that it was a dark-skinned young black man. She could tell. And considering that Mrs. Allenson is also black, well, everyone accused Tyrone. Look, Tyrone isn't some hard-working young black man who needed a place to stay, so he found a technicality and moved in. That's not what happened. If Tyrone had been a young, respectable black man who just worked hard, didn't bother anyone, no one here would have minded that he had pulled that technicality. I don't think they really would have. But Tyrone was a menace and a threat. Now, yes, I heard that rumor that he was taken out by members of, well, as we call them in this state, the Triple K. I heard those rumors. I think we both know those rumors are BS. Well, here's the thing. Whoever took out Tyrone knew him. I say that because Tyrone opened the door to his unit. It's not as though someone broke in. It's not as though someone picked the lock. It's not as though someone smashed the door in with a sledgehammer. Tyrone opened it for them. And, well, your partner isn't very good at keeping secrets, Detective. We know that Tyrone was shot with a .45 auto. And, yes, there are quite a few residents here who are ex-military, soldiers, Marines, Navy, during the Vietnam War. We even have one member who was part of the Korean War. And back then, U.S. military used to issue .45 caliber government model 1911-A1s. Well, I know about military history and I know about guns. What can I tell you, Detective? So, honestly, I think it's rather obvious that one of our residents got fed up and went to Tyrone's place, knocked on the door. Perhaps they were extra friendly with him. Perhaps Tyrone was high on weed and he wasn't thinking clearly. Maybe he was in a good mood. Yeah, weed tends to mellow you out or make you paranoid. So Tyrone opens up the door. Elderly neighbor comes in. He doesn't see him as a threat. And I guess maybe he doesn't see the gun. Well, Detective White, I know that you're a relatively young detective. Let me tell you something about old soldiers. Used to be, during World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, if you were issued a sidearm, it was just standard practice that you kept it at the end of the war. Now, there were some guys who weren't into guns and they would turn theirs in. However, it was standard accepted practice that if you were issued a gun, you would report it missing at the end of the war. Oh, sorry about that, Detective. Yes, we're having some generator issues. Julio is working on it. But as you can see, yeah, it kicked back in rather quickly. Yes. Well, it's been a rough winter, what can I say? But getting back to what I was saying, the military, Uncle Sam, he didn't like it. But a lot of higher-ups, a lot of military officials, a lot of quartermasters, they looked the other way if a soldier wanted to keep his standard issue firearm. Well, at least his standard issue handgun. After all, it's a little bit hard to conceal a rifle and bring it back with you to the States. But if you had a war souvenir and it happened to be a pistol from an enemy soldier or an enemy officer, or if you were actually issued a 1911, well, soldiers typically reported them stolen and kept them. Or if it was a war trophy like a German Luger or maybe a Type 26 Japanese revolver, yeah, soldiers would just not mention that they took the war trophies home with them. That's how it was. It was just standard accepted practice. Now, obviously, that's no longer the case nowadays, but back then it was. And considering how gun-friendly this state happens to be, I wouldn't be surprised if quite a large number of our residents brought back their service pistols, which they, quote, lost in the war. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of them got fed up with Tyrone's BS and decided to do everyone a favor. That's just the reality that you're facing, Detective White. Now, as I said, I've done everything I can to help you. Well, yes. I think you'll have a very tough time getting a warrant to search everyone's unit. And like I said, I seriously doubt you'll find anything. Whoever took out Tyrone most likely got rid of the gun. I mean, honestly, Tyrone never should have even been here. And all those garbage rumors about the Triple K finding him and putting an end to him. No. This is not a racist community, Detective. But then again, you know that. So, I mean, honestly, I know you have a job to do, but no one's really going to get upset if Tyrone's murder case remains unsolved. No one really cares. They're just glad he's gone. Well, here's the thing, Detective. You are a respectable young black man. You worked hard to get to where you are. And as a detective, you're helping out the community. As a police officer, you helped out the community. What did Tyrone do? Just a worthless street thug who victimized people and possibly may have sexually assaulted one of our residents. Definitely physically attacked her. Maybe he took it further. She didn't say anything about that. If something happened to you, you would be missed. You would be mourned. Tyrone, everyone woke up the next day and they were happy that piece of human garbage was gone. But if I can do anything to help with your investigation, please let me know. Let me know if you want that appointment interview with Mrs. Carter. Thank you, Detective White. Have a good day.